We had a little bit of technical difficulties off the top of the stream, but we're good to go now. Little sip of refreshment before we get going. All right. So the irony, the system beneath the system. The system's working, but now what? Okay. So believe me, the irony of this not working out of the gate isn't lost on me. Good thing is I knew where to check, right? You look at the previous video, you'll kind of say what happens when the system stops working. Might be a good video for me to look at and for you to look at as well. So let's get into it. All right, so 4 weeks in, it's time to really take stock. If we look back at the previous live streams, we've had a variety of things pop up. Week 1, we talked about how busyness is a lie, right? In week 2, we talked about intentional living as a daily operating system. And as I alluded to, week 3, what do you do when the system just breaks down? But now, this week, this time around, what we're going to talk about is this thing that I've been building toward without even really explicitly saying that I've been building towards it. So this is the thing I haven't said yet, explicitly or overtly. When it comes to time crafting, which is the framework, the approach, the system that I teach, I want to kind of toot its own horn here. It's a good one. It's one I've been working a large portion of my business career and my entrepreneurial career around, and it's even gone beyond that into my personal life. So this is something worth noting, and I've taught it to thousands of people. I just literally came back from a workshop in the Toronto area where I taught it to hundreds of people there. I'm going to be doing another virtual session for folks in San Antonio later this year. I've taught it both in person and virtually, and of course through video and through my podcast, a variety of places. But it was always meant to be a scaffolding, right? Like the scaffolding of everything, but not the building. And today, this video, what we're going to talk about is the building, okay? So what happens when the system's working, but something just feels off? So like an example, and this is not really related to the system, but the travel I took to Ontario, the travel I took to Toronto. I'm a night owl. So I had to obviously shift my body clock for those days that I was in Toronto, and then I went to the Montreal area. Then I come home and there's a 3-hour body clock shift, and it took me a while to shift back to my natural night owl tendencies. But what was interesting, it wasn't that I was going to bed any earlier, it was I was still getting up early. So I was losing sleep. My body was just like, oh, it's time to get up. And but then it would still say, oh, well, wait, everyone's gone to bed. There's been some social cues, some family cues. Now it's time for you to stay up and do some more work, but I'm tired. So the system was still chugging along, doing its thing, but it felt off. So you probably heard the phrase time is money, right? And it's not the full aphorism. Offhand, I can't remember what the full aphorism is. But it leaves out important things, and productivity advice often treats time like money, right? And I think that that's useful in terms of story and narrative, because people value money, probably more than time, because they can see it, hear it, touch it, use it, exchange it for goods and services, as Homer Simpson, his voice in his head, would say. And so by elevating time to that level, it allows people to maybe look at time a bit differently. It's interesting how we've done that, though, which I think is funny. So it's something to save, something to spend, something to budget, something to optimize, right? But time doesn't work like money. You can't stockpile it, right? You can't do that. I mean, it does compound over time, but that's a very different way of looking at it. But it certainly doesn't stockpile. You can't earn any more of it, right? Like you can't earn any more time. And the more that you treat it like money, a resource to control, well, the more exhausted or behind you're going to feel. And you will feel. And I can speak from experience because I've tried to do that with both in my life. you know, and I know what it's like not to have money. I certainly know what it's like to feel like you don't have time. I literally posted something to Instagram yesterday that talked about that. The idea of so many ideas, swimming in thoughts, swimming in ideas, but not drowning. And that's, I think, the key, right? Is that I'm not drowning, but there's just so many things. What if you think about time, though, as a relationship instead of a resource to control? What if you think about time as a resource, or as a relationship, rather? What if time is a relationship instead? See, relationships, they require presence. They require grace. They require the willingness to show up imperfectly and just keep showing up anyway. Here's an example. This relationship that I'm building here on YouTube is an example. 9 a.m. You can't really see it here, but coffee partly put together. To be completely imperfect, my coffee grounds and compost area is over here because I was running into some issues with the coffee maker this morning as well, which is a pour over. So it shows that I'm not necessarily as awake as I'd like to be, but you still show up. Like, that's, I think, the relationship with time. So, you know, when it happens to relationships, it's imperfect, but you show up anyway. And what happens when you do that is relationships, they deepen over time. And it's not because you manage them or manage them well. I think it's, in fact, I know it's because you tended them. Like, you tended to them. And we can't gloss over that. So when you think about that as a reframe from resource to relationship, then that really is the heart that everything that I've been writing about for the last few years. Yes, I've written the productivity diet, which is more prescriptive. Here are the ways that you can, here's how TimeCrafting works, basically, for if you want to distill it down to its basic elements. But the new book coming out, which if you follow me elsewhere, or you're a member of my TimeCrafting Trust community, you'll know the final manuscript has been locked, sent off to the publisher. It is now officially out of my hands, other than approving design, getting advanced reader copies in front of folks, things like that. And then, of course, once the book is published, like, there's all the other stuff that goes with it. But at this point, that book is now no longer mine, right? And so it's almost like writing a book is a relationship as well. So when you think about the reframe I'm discussing, time as a resource, as not as a resource, but as a relationship, what happens there is it changes how you use TimeCrafting entirely. Like any system, really, but TimeCrafting will focus on because I know the most about it, obviously. But any system, well, I don't care if you're using the bullet journal. I don't care if you're using building a second brain. I don't care if you're using getting things done. When you think about time as a relationship as opposed to a resource, it changes the way you use those systems, right? It changes the way you use those systems entirely. So in TimeCrafting, the themes aren't time slots or time blocks. What they are their commitments to how you want to show up on a given day, hour, week, month, etc. So if you're using daily themes, it's not a daily block of time. Instead, it's here's what matters most on this day because it's Monday, and Monday is when I want to take care of most of my administrative stuff. It's Tuesday, and Tuesday is when I want to network the most. It's when I want to show up and be at my best for people. And by the way, when you do that theming element, again, daily, horizontally, which would be hours of the day, weekly, monthly, focus more on the daily and the horizontally, your brain naturally gets rewired to go down that path more easily and elegantly. Again, kind of like that whole time zone shift that I did, right? When you shift from one time zone to another, your body naturally adapts to it, at least partially, right? The tendencies may shift a little, but not entirely. So what I've been doing around all of this lately is I've been working on a book. I just talked about it. It's called Productiveness. And the philosophy, really what it is it's the philosophy, easy for me to say, beneath the system. It's this thing that this whole series that I've done over the last few weeks has been circling around without really naming directly. So productiveness. Why productiveness? Well, when you think about it, and I have a short that kind of goes into it a little bit more, productiveness is the state of being productive. Productivity is the activity of producing. In fact, to be productive is the power or ability to produce, especially in abundance. And what's interesting is the word productive, that still works on its own. But what's happened is, and the reason that the word productiveness has kind of gone out of fashion, I'm trying to bring it back, is when we went through the revolutions, the industrial ones, especially I think that's the second one, manufacturing got sped up. Productivity is a manufacturing term, right? It's, like it's shifted in that direction. You look at all of the folks that were focusing on time management early on, it wasn't about self-care like we're talking about now. Time blocking wasn't necessarily a thing. It was how quickly can we do a thing? How fast can we do it? When you look at the works of around motion theory, Francis Gilbreth, for example, you see that that's where it was headed because, again, the relationship between time and money. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be offering quantity as a factor when it comes to being productive, because when it comes to being productive, it can't just be about quality. There's this interesting story, I believe, in the book The Practicing Mind by Thomas Sterner, where he talks to two different manufacturers. I think he talks to, if I remember this correctly, the Yamaha piano making factory, and then just an artisanal piano maker. And the Yamaha factory has a quota that they have to hit every day, and the supervisor sets that quota, and the interviewee is being asked, and they kind of go through the process, and there's a bunch of Yamaha pianos coming off the line. And then when the author talks to the artisanal piano maker, he says, well, how many pianos do you make per day or per week? Let's even go with that. I'm a bit fuzzy on the details. And he says, as many as I can, which is a very interesting way to look at being productive, because he doesn't say, I strive to make 3 or I strive to make 10. He also doesn't say, well, if I make 1, that's okay. It's just as many as I can. And the curiosity is, well, what, don't you have a quota? What does your supervisor have to say? And the artisanal craftsperson says, what's a supervisor? I mean, it's not, they don't need that in that environment. And I think what's happened, in fact, I know what's happened over the years, is that this obsession with quantity over quality, and Robert Pirsig has written about this a lot in his works like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, Lila, and his posthumous release on quality. We kind of have gotten that out of whack. We're forsaking quantity for quality, or quality for quantity, rather. We're forsaking quality for quantity. And the aim of productiveness is to get us back to what we used to say. Hey, we wouldn't say like, what was your productivity like today? It would be like, oh, my productiveness was pretty good, right? So the productiveness is the state of being productive, and productivity is the activity of producing. And one naturally now leans towards quantity, and the other one has a balance between like quality and quantity, because when you're in a state, you've heard of flow state or any of these states, you have this capability of being able to have ebbs and flows of producing, being productive. But because you're never too far away from it, you have the ability to kick it up a notch when it's needed, or naturally you kick it up a notch when you get to a certain phase of, for lack of a better term, production. Whereas in productivity, it's this machine, this mechanical thing. I remember, this is kind of a perfect probably a good metaphor for it. It's not in the book, but when I worked for Costco, when I moved, because that's what got me out west here in Victoria, Canada. I've shared this story before, my origin story or whatever you want to call it, on podcasts and interviews. But what I haven't really shared, and I've shared this, I think, to a few select folks, but not widely, is when I worked at Costco in Ontario. So I was in like near the Toronto area. It was a very different vibe than working at the Costco here in on Vancouver Island. And it wasn't that the buildings were any different. I mean, yeah, there was no snow, and the gazebos where the carts weren't covered, at least not where I was. Things like that. But there was just a different vibe around the relationship with the workplace, and you could tell who was from other parts of Canada specifically, I would say, and this is not a slight, but I would say the island. We hired a lot of local workers. That's one of the things that Costco does, and any business should do this. But the mentality was, and I'm going to say what I realized it was where I was from, it was a live to work mentality, right? Like you wanted to move your way up. That was the goal, right? The more I work, the higher I'll go, the better the better my life will be. I'll make more money. I'll have more time. And I mean, when I grew up, especially growing up in Southern Ontario, I mean, basically my parents worked hard all week. And then on the weekends, we would go to the cottage, which was not terribly far from where we were, but it would vary. And then we would get there late on a Friday night. This is in the summer, when the summers were happening specifically. So around this time of year, as we're doing this, these things started to happen. We'd go there, we'd leave on a Friday afternoon, we'd get to the cottage, we'd probably be so tired, we'd just go to bed. And then the next day we would get up and we would clean because we hadn't been there in a week or however long it was. And we'd have to get things ready. And then basically from Saturday afternoon to say basically early Sunday, maybe midday Sunday, we could do whatever we wanted. And then we started to pack up and then we headed back so that we could be back in time so that my dad and my mom could get some rest before they went back to work on Monday. And that was the thing. It was the consistent. And I know I'm not unique in this, and I'm sure that I'm not saying that, oh, woe is me. I was lucky in that regard. We had a place to go and my parents had weekends off, and I think that was great. But that mentality of rest was secondary, or rest was, I'm not going to say temporary, but work dominated. And if I worked more, then I'll get more. My friend Chris Ducker just did a video I saw the other day where he talks about like hustle is a season. And he's right. I've talked about hustle as well. And it just felt like growing up there, and especially when I was working at Costco back in the Toronto area, that hustle wasn't a season, hustle was consistent. And of course you can't sustain hustle, but it was low level, right? Like I think in some areas. Now I move out here, people have a different mentality. They work to live. That was my interpretation of it. Not everybody, but the general is, hey, you know what? This is I'm working so that I can have a life that I want to have, but I'm not going to put more into it. I'm willing to be here longer to move my way up and do what's necessary, but I'm not going to go necessarily as above and beyond because it's not being asked of me and it's not required of me. I'll do it, but if it puts me out, then they would essentially have better work-life balance, if you want to use that term. So why do I share this with you? So imagine if you're somebody that comes from that other environment and you get kind of dropped into this one. And I was a supervisor. So I was having a hard time with this. And the hard time I was having was Costco had a very generous sick day policy. I don't know if it still does. And again, I think Costco's a fantastic company to work for. I've talked about it many times. Still have lots of people I know that work there. But I remember when we were during our opening months, after we opened the building, and opening a Costco building is intense. At least, again, it used to be. We're talking 1998, 99. So I would say 99, early 99. So by the summer, around this time of year, actually, the weather started getting nice in Victoria. And if you live on the wet coast of Canada or the Pacific Northwest, you know, hey, this is going to take it's going to take a lot of vitamin D to get through those gray months. But you would get those select days in April and May where all of a sudden the sun would pop up. And today, for example, this whole past weekend, it's been in the high 20 degrees Celsius areas. In my backyard, it got as hot as 25 degrees. So there are certain times of year where it's a bit of an anomaly that it would get warm. And I remember I was working in the food court, the hot dog and soda pop area, and I was running both the food court and the service deli. So I was doing both of those jobs. One of the few that was supervising both. And I had 3 people call in sick on that day. I think one was legitimately, I'm sick, and fully like either was sick or definitely made it sound like they were. But 2 others were bold about it. Yeah, I've got my 6 days and I'm not coming in today. It's really nice out. Or something like 2 of them were legitimately telling me that it's so nice out that I'm going to not work today and I'm going to go enjoy life. And there was nothing really I could do about it other than, okay, I guess I'm going to be working longer because that's my job. I'm going to try to call some people in. And again, I want to be clear. This is not everybody was like this. I don't think people do this typically, but this was the environment that was there, and it's literally what happened. So I remember that I was struggling and I had a bit of a break and I went towards the manager's office. I was, if you've been to a Costco, there's this door that people come in and out of, these employees, not the lunchroom area, but there's this like office door area. And that's where the managers came out of. And then inside of that was the warehouse manager's office as well. But he had come out onto the main floor area just by where the cash registers were. So I was walking past and he asked how I was doing. And I said, it's brutal today. Like I have had 3 sick day calls and 2 of them just told me that they were not coming in because it was nice out. Like they're using a sick day for this. And I said, there's got to be some kind of reproach. Like there has to be repercussions for this, right? Like, can you imagine? And he literally leaned forward. And if you looked off to the left, he could see the warehouse, the big garage doors, those bay doors that are open. And he looked out, he looked back and he goes, well, it is a nice day out. And at that point in time, I realized, so this is a me thing now. This isn't a Mike, you're going to we'll help you out. It was, you better get used to the way things are here because they're very different here than they are where you're from. And I don't know how many of you, and this is going to date me, remember the old Looney Tunes cartoons. And I remember distinctly in that moment, and even to this day, I felt like Yosemite Sam. And there's a scene where he's drumming and he says, well, if you can't beat him, join him. And he joins up with Bugs Bunny and they do this parade thing or whatever. And I thought that in that exact moment. And here's the real interesting part. Once I embraced that and realized that and said, all right, well, this is how it is, everything became better. It's not like I was any less productive. In fact, there were things I did after the fact that were more creative because I had given myself space. And I think this is really what this boils down to. Productiveness versus productivity gives that space that you need for a relationship to flourish, right? And so there were things I was doing at Costco that no one had really done before, at least in the service deli area. Like I was doing things like figuring out how to mass produce chicken pot pies during chicken pot pie promos. Like I was getting creative with the manufacturing process. I was getting creative with the marketing too. I took up one of those entire coffin coolers of chicken pot pies. Like it was, and I would do other things. And I do talk about this in the book about how can I be efficacious about this? How can I not just be efficient and effective, but combine those two so that everyone wins? perception is not diluted or wrecked. I don't have to worry about any repercussions after events where people will say, like, if we had to have a really impressive showing for someone from head office or whatever in the middle of the week when we weren't selling very many things, I was able to figure out how to shine and deliver strong results without compromising some of the after effects that could happen, because that does and in the book I specifically dive into a Costco story that I thought kind of is emblematic of this. Another one which I don't touch on in the book was, we used to sell at Costco a number of years ago these things called smoked barbecue salmon tips. If you've ever shopped at a Costco back in this is, again, we're going back into because I left Costco in 2006. So for a number of years we would get these pre-made barbecue salmon tips, and they had cracked pepper on them and all that, and we would put them into these little plastic containers and date them and all that stuff and put them in the coffin coolers. And we had a coupon for them one year, and I think they happened more regularly after that too, but because they were easy. You just had to package them, and that was it. And you had to weigh them to make sure that they were in a certain weight category, but that's neither here nor there. And I'm like, how do we move these? How do I make these? Because they're not moving. Like, people don't even know what these are. So we did get one of those PWD people, the demonstrator people, to actually help with this. But I also took one of those, and I don't know if you've ever seen these, but these big, they almost look like cubes, and they have, you could put ice in them, and then the fish would, or any kind of, mostly fish you'd put in them, packaged. And you've probably seen these in other stores where they're not packaged and the fish are just kept on ice. Well, what we did is I said, do we have any room outside? Like, do you have an end cap or some place where I could merchandise these? I can move them if need be, but let's get them in front of more people that aren't necessarily looking for them. So let's highlight them. And I ended up, you would walk in the building, and you would see this guy, me, wearing all the whites with the red, with a deli jacket on. So I looked like a meat department guy. And I was standing behind the counter, or this cube, and I would help merch these. So I put in extra time for this. This is where the meshing of, and this is where I think this is ultimately where I want to take you as well. People were like, what are these things? I'm like, well, give them a try. And they'd be like, oh, these are really good. I'm like, yeah, they're great on crackers with you could put them, if you don't want to go buy salmon locks and you want to have them with cream cheese, you could do that. They're great for you could slice them up and put them in a there was a variety of things that I said, and we sold more than any other Costco in Canada during that one promotion. Now this is where the danger is when you do that in a business. It gives you some numbers that you have to try to match, or at least get close to in subsequent years. And that was kind of a one shot or a one-off. It didn't really happen after that. But of course, they budgeted for, oh, well, he did this last time, so he's going to do, maybe he won't do exactly what he did last time, but he'll do this much this time. And I didn't hit those targets. So, because there's only so much you could do with that product. But that's the interesting thing, is that because I had lived on both sides of things, that go, fast, now, live to work mentality. And then I've embraced the work to live mentality. It allowed me to kick it up a notch when I needed to. I'm sure you've come across this too, where, you're at this level, and then all of a sudden there's a season that you need to kick it up, and then you can come back down. We're going into this now. I mean, as we're doing this, we're in May. We're coming up to the summer months in the Northern Hemisphere. You're probably you'll probably drop a little bit in terms of, your output, let's say. And it's largely due to the external pressure. There's holidays coming up. The weather does play a factor, all of those things. I mean, it's going to be nice outside, right? But my point is that this seasonal stuff, if you're in the state of productiveness, it's going to allow you to never fully leave being productive, because when you're in that productivity mindset, you end up oscillating not between hey, this is a season where I go up. This is a season where, the cadence needs to change here. You go from, I better do productive to, oh, look, I'm being productive. Like there is a distinction there. So when it comes to productiveness, as we get close to wrapping up, there are 9 principles of productiveness that I go through in the book. And these are all, the way the book's divided up is you can go through the principles in a row, but they all work off of each other. And these principles are humanness, grace, prudence, nuance, tolerance, efficacy, trust, and will. Machines do not have any of those things without humans being involved, for sure. But they don't have any of those things innately, especially the first one. And the last one, for that matter. But each one opens up a different door. And again, they all work off of one another. Nathan's got a great point here. In Arizona in summer means I stay inside to hide from the heat. Very less productive. Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. So all of these principles together, they form something that's less a system manual, so less prescriptive, let's say, and more, as I kind of echo in my writing in the book, an album. I've been obsessed with this podcast over the last couple of years called Discord and Rhyme. And they break down record albums from track 1 all the way to the final track. And they do this on a vinyl record because sequencing really matters. And I don't know a lot about this, but I'm always curious. If you're a musician, you could probably tell me, or you're a producer. Sequencing on a record really matters. Not just choosing which songs you're going to release as singles, but the sequence of the album, especially now that vinyl's made a bit of a renaissance, it really does matter. And as I wrote the book, you can't see this here, but I was listening to a variety of records. I do have a record player right here. You can see it. But the record that I kind of leaned into the most was the Beatles' White Album, or simply titled The Beatles, which is a very long, it's a big record, but it also illustrates very different musical styles throughout, but they all somehow work. Yeah, there's a few outliers, but they all kind of work together. So that, I wouldn't say that I followed a record album sequentially entirely in the same way, but I definitely try to make it more lyrical than linear, and more of a feeling than formula. So when you pick up this book, and it's a short book, you can read it from cover to cover like you would a record album. You could say, oh, I like this particular track, and you could go there. And then it could lead you to another track, which might be later. So this is the CD era, or the MP3 era, where you could jump around to the different tracks, chapters. But I really wanted to write something that felt more lyrical and feeling oriented than linear and formulaic. I want to be clear that it's not a guide to getting more done. Really what it is it's an invitation to live in a way that feels durable, intentional, and true. So it's realistically, if you're looking at my body of work as a writer, especially in the last few years, if the productivity diet is the how-to in terms of prescriptive, I would probably say that productiveness is the why-to, with a bit of how-to in there. I even say that the productivity diet leans how-to, but it has some why-to in there. What I mean by why-to is like why it's worth looking at this. Why? Like it tends to answer that, or at least give you, maybe not answer those questions, but give you pause to think about them more. So as I mentioned off the top, the final manuscript is locked. It's out of my hands now. So now it's in the design team hands, and we're working towards getting a publication date announced. between now and then, what you can expect from me, not just here, but elsewhere, is living inside of those principles together, those 9 principles. And essentially, whether you're watching me on YouTube or whether you're listening to the podcast, we're going to go through them one at a time. And again, like in the book, the relationship between each principle is going to show up, all of that. So you can expect that. And I'd love for you to share your thoughts around this. So as we wrap up here, I want you to think about the deeper thing that's underneath your productivity frustration. What is the deeper thing underneath your productivity frustration? I'm not talking about the tactical problem here. I'm talking about the existential one. So that's going to take space. The I'm doing everything right and it still doesn't feel like enough. That's the question. So here are 3 things to ponder. Number 1, what would it mean for your days to feel meaningful rather than just productive? Secondly, is there a principle from your own life that guides how you relate to time, or in this case, how you use your time? Maybe you've been thinking about it that way, even if you've never really named it. And then thirdly, what's one thing you wish productivity advice talked about more honestly? So as I alluded to a little bit earlier, the system is the how, but productiveness is the why. So we're going to start going deeper on the why. One principle at a time, building towards something that I think is going to land differently than anything I've ever put out before across a variety of platforms. So if you've been here watching all of the live streams previous to this, the weekly ones, not the Lyceums. The Lyceums stand separately, and we've got another one coming up, I believe, next week. So we're going to do a Lyceum next week, and then we're going to start to explore this more deeply in the weeks to follow. So I encourage you to go back and look at those other live streams. And I think if you've either already taken them in or go back and review them, you're already thinking in the right direction. We're already leaning towards that. That's why this kind of culminated to what we're talking about today. I want you to stay with it. Keep up with me on YouTube because I'm going to keep peppering it. Same thing with all of my socials, my email list. You can get all the links that are in the description will help you out with this, especially the email, because that's where you're going to see most of it. And you'll get updates on the book and all that stuff as well. But the next part of the journey is, well, it's underway. And so with that in mind, I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stop doing productive. Oh, we've got, I want to address something. I just noticed this. Thanks, Nathan. Didn't take you long to sit with this question. So for me, the question I ask myself at the end of the day is, did I connect with others and help them with the tasks I completed today? Yes. See, you're thinking beyond. That's great. I do that on my connection days for sure. Like Tuesdays are my days to connect. And so that my overarching focus for that daily theme is connection. And so that's my goal, is to foster relationships. And if you're in a vocation that that question that you just addressed, did I connect with others and help them with the tasks I completed today? Then you're already well on your way. You're leaning in that productiveness. You're leaning towards productiveness that way. So thanks for sharing that, Nathan. All right. So, and by the way, if you have anything you want to share, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I want to address them. If you have anything you have questions about or want me to lean into in coming live streams or even other videos, I'm doing short videos now as well. Not just shorts, but videos every week. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Mike Vardy, and remember, stop doing productive and start being productive. See you later.